and gentlemen. First up, we have a very special startup that we're featuring on the show that we're putting the spotlight on, and that's Fractal AI. Well, it's a leading unicorn in the AI space. It's made waves with the release of Fathom R114B, which is a 14 billion parameter open source model purpose-built for reasoning. What's drawing major attention isn't just the model's performance. In fact, it is outpacing Meta's 04 mini low in self-consistency tests, but the efficiency of the model as well. In fact, the major one point that really makes it stand out from the rest is that it's priced at $499. Now, with open models becoming more and more viable for enterprise-grade reasoning and performance inching closer to closed source giants, is this a turning point for accessible AI? How does Fractal see developers and enterprises adopting Fathom R114B in the wild? We discuss all of that and more with the co-founder of the company, the CEO of Fractal, and of course, he's also an advisor to the India AI mission, Mr. Srikanth Velamakanni. Thank you very much, Srikanth, for joining us here on ET Now. Appreciate you taking the time out and speaking to us right here. Now, of course, since we're talking about your new model, you've just recently launched that. It's an open source reasoning model. And I was just talking about the pricing of this model as well. But how else is it different from the other models that are available in the market today? And how did you design the pricing strategy for this?
Thank you, Sumita. First of all, there's a big difference between pre-trained models and post-trained models. So Fractal's Fathom R1 14 billion parameter model is a post-trained model, which means that you are actually taking a model and it is going to think at the time you ask a question. Pre-trained models are like high school students who have read every book in the world and can answer any question very quickly. Post-trained models are designed to think when the question is asked. They're able to reflect on their thinking and they're able to do more mathematical reasoning and things like that. And that's really the idea of post-trained models. So Fractal built a post-trained model and the cost of training the model was $499. It's free to everyone. Anybody can use it. It's open sourced, open weights with open data sets. So anyone can download. So I mean, it's just been about 10 days since we launched it. There are more than 13,000 people who have downloaded it already. So it is really getting some traction because we have been very efficient in terms of how much training compute went into it. You may have heard of billions of dollars of compute being used to train other models. So this is much more efficient. At the same time, it gets you O1, O3 performance, O1 mini and O3 mini performance, and it even reaches the O4 mini levels as well. So that's the special thing about this. Specifically, it is good at answering mathematical questions.
Right. So very interesting points that you've made, Srikanth, with respect to this model and the fact that, it thinks as you ask it a question. So I want to understand from you as a company that has other AI offerings as well, including coaching tools, text-to-image tools. Which segments are you specifically targeting this particular model to your new model that you've just released? And what are the growth expectations that you have from this model vis-a-vis the other offerings that you have?
Yeah, the objective of Fractal in doing this is to actually contribute to the India AI mission. India AI mission was launched a year and a half ago with 10,000 crore budget and so on. And we thought that the real issue here is, can India build a model that is state of the art and can exceed the state of the art as it exists today? And that's why we thought the real opportunity for India is to do post-training rather than pre-training. So we decided to build this model. We actually submitted a proposal to India AI mission. We sent two proposals. One proposal in March was about building a large reasoning model. We called it a large reasoning model, which could be larger than 14 billion. It could be something like 70 billion parameter model. And then we also said in an April proposal that we could build a medical reasoning model, which could do specific questions on healthcare and so on. India needs healthcare reasoning. We don't have enough doctors. We don't have enough radiologists. So we thought that would be another option. But the idea behind building these models was to show that India can build these AI research products and then put it out in the open and can actually meet the state of the art. So that's really the objective of doing this. We have, of course, a very significant business serving Fortune 100 companies around the world and also building several B2C AI products. This is our research offering that we have released. This also is a proof point to that we can do something like this at very efficiently in many other situations as well.
Right. So you are focusing on research, specifically research and development with respect to this particular model. And, the several experts whom we've spoken to, they have specifically focused on the aspect of research when it comes to development of AI models in the country. That's a good start that's been made. But Srikanth, when I was talking about your other models, when it includes the text-to-image model, the AI-driven healthcare model, what are some other future models that you'll be working on, and what are the growth expectations that you have from each of these segments? How are some of these segments really performing for you as a company? If you could give us a comparative analysis.
Yes. First of all, we released a AI coaching tool called MarshallGoldsmith.ai, which takes the coaching advice of Marshall Goldsmith, who was a legendary executive coach, and puts it into a hallucination-free coaching advisor that's available free of cost to everyone. What we have seen is that it has become such an interesting, important tool that many HR departments of various large companies have asked us to make it their advisor tool inside their companies. So we have done that for some of them as well. Secondly, we have a tool called Kaleido.ai, which is a text-to-image model. Again, it's free to use for consumers. What we have seen is this ability to convert text into images is very helpful in, let's say, real-time advertising. So many of our big enterprise clients are using it behind the scenes to do personalized advertising and really do the kind of work that agencies do, take 6 weeks or so, crunch it down to an hour or 2 hours. So that's really where we are seeing massive traction. We also did Vaidya.ai, which is a healthcare AI product. Again, it's free to everyone to use. And the idea is it will give you questions. You can ask a question on any medical question before you meet a doctor or after you meet a doctor. It'll give you really sound advice and medical information and prepare you for a doctor visit and let you know about the side effects and so on. Again, it's free for everyone to use. It's at Vaidya.ai. But what we are also doing is using this kind of information to see if we can, for example, do it for pets. We work with several pet care companies, and can we use something like this for a pet use case as well? So this is the idea of Fractal AI research, is to build these business to consumer AI products. That is a good proof of what we can do, and then use some of that capabilities in also serving some of the big companies that we serve today.
Right, Srikanth, but the big question when it comes to conversations around AI is how are you looking at reducing bias? Because this is, of course, from the very early conversations that started around AI, but it's still very, very relevant given the fact that AI models could be prone to bias. So how are you making sure that bias is reduced and eliminated?
That's a wonderful question. This field is called responsible AI. And essentially what you have to do is that you have to make sure that the data that you're using is not biased. The way you define the problem, what you call as a dependent variable, that has no bias. And after you build the model, you have to validate to make sure that the way it is working, it's fair, it's transparent, it is explainable, things like that. So there are a whole set of principles. We have a set of 8 principles, which are responsible AI principles. What we do is after we build any product, an independent team runs the responsible AI checklist, a set of multiple tests to make sure that the model is safe and responsible. And for example, when we did Kaleido, we had 43 different checks applied by an independent team. And then when the score is green, we know that it's responsible enough to be released. So whatever Fractal releases has this responsible AI certification, internal certification in it. And we've also been advocating to the government of India to have a responsible AI framework for the nation. And as I'm also the NASSCOM vice chairperson, as NASSCOM, we have consulted with the Indian government in creating a responsible AI framework for our country. And the idea is if we have a test, a toolkit, which any tool can go through, then the products that come out of that are likely to be much more responsible than otherwise.
Right, Srikanth. Let's now, switch our focus and look at global developments and shifts that are happening. How much of an impact as a company that you're facing with respect to these headwinds, given the fact that these policy headwinds, particularly if you see the tariff policy introduced by the United States, how much of that is impacting companies, some of whom are your clients as well, and what kind of a shift in spends are you seeing in the near term due to these disruptions that have been caused by some of these policies that I just spoke about?
Yes. The long-term impact of policies is something that one can pontificate and see there may be something good coming out of that. But in the very short term, a flip-flop on policies means that there is massive uncertainty. And whenever there's uncertainty, typically companies around the world freeze. They take the worst possible assumption in mind, and then they take those kinds of steps. They might fire people, they might cut down spending, they might delay investments, and so on. So when that happens, everything slows down, and therefore you may have a stagnation plus a recession, stagnation plus inflation, which is called stagflation. So this is the kind of scenarios that may happen if the tariff policies come into effect in the very short term. And because the tariff policies are going up and down, companies are in a state of sort of freeze mode, watching what's going to happen. In which case, some of the spends also get frozen. So whenever companies around the world suffer, everyone suffers in the process. So that's just the nature of the beast. Having said that, I think some of the policies have moved in the right direction. Some of the early announcements that were made by the administration have been unwinded. And therefore, I do believe that overall things may work out okay, and we might avoid some of the most painful scenarios that were possible when the announcements were made on the Liberation Day last month.
Right. So, Srikanth, you say that, the long-term disruption, the long-term impact of these disruptions is yet to be seen, and eventually you're hoping that everything will fall into place. But what's the near-term outlook that you're looking at, and, how is that then impacting your deal pipeline?
So far, we are experiencing a massive tailwind because of the excitement around AI. One of the big issues of AI is that while there's so much excitement about AI in the consumer world, for example, ChatGPT mentioned that they have 800 million active users. We've heard from Gemini that they have something like 1.5 billion AI overviews every month. And in the Google search, the AI overviews, 1.5 billion of them. And they have probably about 400 million active users of Gemini. Microsoft announced that they're processing 100 trillion tokens in a quarter. Which means that many times model has been used, or that many words have been used in asking questions. Gemini, on the other hand, is 50x larger than that, 50 trillion tokens. So everything shows that consumer world is using AI in a very big way. But that's not yet translating into enterprise use, because there are concerns like safety, responsible AI, there are privacy and other compliance-related considerations as well. So we see a massive opportunity to translate AI excitement into enterprise performance. And companies around the world, whether it's chief AI officers, CEOs, CIOs, they're very interested in making sure that they're using this in order to drive performance, which is higher revenue growth, a higher productivity, and higher profitability. These are the kinds of things they're looking at using AI. So there is massive tailwind for AI. On the flip side, we have the tariff-related headwinds as well. The balance of this is still a significant tailwind for AI companies as of today. So we are in a good spot in terms of leveraging these tailwinds and building a strong business for Fractal.
Right. And which segments are driving demand when you talk about the tailwinds with respect to AI? And, if you could throw some light on that as well.
Companies are significantly expanding their spends as of today. So that's definitely one big place where we are seeing massive traction. We're also seeing life sciences and healthcare companies, and process-intensive industries like insurance and financial services, significantly expanding the use of AI. So we are seeing these sectors mainly. Some of the others, like manufacturing world, you see some slowdown because of the significant impact of tariffs. I spoke to a client a couple of weeks ago, and she was mentioning to me, she's based out of New York, and she was mentioning to me that all their factories are either in Canada or in Mexico, and never had they planned that anything could happen vis-a-vis tariffs between Mexico and Canada, given that there's a NAFTA agreement in place. But then those are the times we're living in. So because of these kinds of uncertainties, some manufacturing companies may have slowed down a little bit, but a whole host of other industries are expanding the use of AI in a very significant way.
That's a very interesting point that you made with respect to manufacturing, Srikanth, because, manufacturing is a key pillar so far as India's policies are concerned. And of course, now the United States is also looking at making in America and making America great again on the back of manufacturing. So that will be a key piece to watch out for. But when we talk about, AI and how it's being leveraged as a soft power tool, and India is specifically looking at taking a leadership position in AI, where do you see the India story headed, and where is the real differentiator when it comes to India versus some of the other countries that are developing more advanced reasoning and complex models?
We have to look at India and what are our advantages and what are our disadvantages. A country like India does not have significant investment capacity. So if you look at our India AI mission, it's just 1.3 billion in scale. Even a country like Canada is spending more than that per month on AI. And here we are spending it over years. So India does not have massive investment appetite. So we have to come up with clever, newer ideas where we can make our money work harder. What are the advantages we have? We have data sets. India has access to the largest data set in the world because we have 1.4 billion people. We have healthcare data coming out of various hospitals, army hospitals. Government has massive amount of data sets that they've collected over the years, and they've become really, really good. Therefore, India has the advantage of data. And most importantly, India has the advantage of talent. 1 in 3 people working in the world of AI today is an Indian person. So if India could create a big mission like the space mission or like our nuclear mission, if our AI mission could also take the scale of that kind of a mission, where we created an ISRO or we created a Bhabha Atomic Research Center, and then we created traction, my request or my suggestion to Indian government would be to think at that scale and then build an initiative to build the best models in the world. And I would think it's not pre-training, because pre-training is very expensive. A ChatGPT, like pre-trained models cost you billions of dollars to train. But post-training or reasoning and agentic models, these models can be much more efficient. And here, especially if you take a sector like healthcare or mathematics or STEM disciplines, we have a real chance of building something that's ahead of rest of the world. And then we can have our own deep sea moment in the next 6 months to a year. So that would be my advice to our Indian AI mission.
Right. Srikanth, and that's essentially what the government of India is looking at in terms of, bringing about a revolution, bringing about a societal change and aiding people when it comes to using technology as it's done in DPI, digital public infrastructure, and several other services. But let me go back to the point that you made about, a budgetary allocation is very low as compared to some of the other countries. Why do you think that is the case? And have you had these conversations with the government of India? In your understanding, what could be the key reason?
I think overall, India has been very fiscally prudent. I think it's a good thing that over the years, we have, as a country, become more fiscally prudent. We are bringing our fiscal deficit down to a smaller fraction of GDP. We have several competing needs, like we have 1.4 billion population. We have direct benefit transfers, welfare schemes, which are very expensive. We have to do that because that's the state of the country. That leaves a small pot of money left for doing exploratory, innovative things like India AI mission. And therefore, the number comes down to a smaller number. Other developed countries have done that 50 years ago. So they have money for these sorts of research purposes. So that's really the context. I don't think we can really dramatically change that. The question is, can we make the $1 billion or $1.3 billion work really hard and create that kind of a strategic advantage? The question really is, to me, it's not about building AI models that have Indian languages and Indian values. These are going to come automatically. What we need is, can we build towards AGI, artificial general intelligence? That is really a strategic point where countries might become, can withhold their technology and not share with other countries. And there could be several kinds of chaotic things that can happen once we reach that point. So the question is, can India be at least neck to neck with the rest of the world, especially US and China, in terms of building AI models? And for that, I would take the $1 billion and make it work on post-training rather than pre-training. So that's really the simple arithmetic that I've been working with and advising the government.
Right. Srikanth, one final question on that entire issue about budget. How much do you think it should be scaled up to? And then we'll move on to some of the other questions that I still have pending.
I think about $1 billion a month would be a right number if we had the money. I don't think it's easy, but that is the kind of scale that might be required. And I think it could be something like India announces a team and let's say invites rest of the world, the best researchers in the world to come and contribute and build India's sovereign model. We might take 6 months to a year for it to stabilize. But after that, we'll start producing the breakthrough AI models that the rest of the world will absolutely envy. It's absolutely possible. India has the wherewithal. India has enough GPUs for now, and we can do it. And it's just a question of clarifying our intent and focusing our intent on sharply defined problems like reasoning and planning rather than on pre-training.
Absolutely. Right. And, we do hope that the private sector also comes forward in large numbers to aid this India AI mission. But Srikanth, let me shift our focus back to Fractal AI. You've made your plans earlier to go public. What are the timelines essentially that you're looking at going for the public markets and filing the DRHP? And what's the size of the IPO that you're looking at? What's the valuation of the company that you're looking at?
These are very important questions. I wish I could give you a answer right now. I'm advised by my lawyers to not talk about that right now. But we are certainly of the intent to be public sooner than later. That's for sure. We would like to be a public company. We have clarified our intent. It's just a question of timing. And that is subject to various sorts of processes in place that are happening.
Understand that you have legal compliances as well when you talk about the timelines, but any tentative timelines that you're looking at for that big ticket IPO, because given the fact that you are the first AI unicorn and hence everybody will be looking at that IPO whenever it happens.
We would like to be public as soon as possible. Ideally, if wishes were horses, I would be public today.
All right, Srikanth, thank you very much. We will not push you further. Thank you very much for taking the time out, and do hope that IPO comes in soon, and hope to have you back on ET Now talking about that and more. Thank you very much once again for taking the time out and speaking to us right here on Startup Central.
Thank you, Sumita. Pleasure to be here.